All right, we'll go ahead and get started. So we had, sorry for starting late, had a little incident.
By the way,
Go ahead.
hold on, stop.
Everything's good, so thanks for staying. So we are going to go ahead and get started with our data meeting. And I pulled exit tickets from, I believe they were Tuesday's exit tickets that focused on standards 3.1 and 3.2 mainly. So I know we've broken down the standards before, so I'm just going to cast the standard breakdown, and then I want us to think about how does the exit ticket meet the rigor of the standard? Like, what are the most important parts of the standard that students needed to master in order to be able to get a 3 on this exit ticket? So there's a standard breakdown that we've done before for those two standards for no one to be able to do. Can y'all see it? Well, and I can go ahead, if you need to remember the exit ticket, I can give it to you. So I have samples of what. Oh, you need both packets.
Oh.
So thinking about this standard in the knows and be able to do's for 3.1 and 3.2, what do you think are key things that students need to be able to demonstrate to be able to do well on this exit ticket?
So I felt like they needed to look at the actions. The question is asking particularly about like the humans themselves, so they needed to pay attention to the actions that the humans had while interacting with the animals. At that point, they then would have needed to make an inference based on like previously learned vocabulary terms. So things like humane, treating the animals with care. And then to support their claim, they had to find like the most relevant details from each story for that cited evidence piece.
I think what you just said is important about the characters. Like, they did need to focus on the humans and the interactions between them. So I think that kind of goes to support both, like, using the dialogue and actions, but actually like focusing on the certain character who actually like didn't really say much, or like, you know, but they had to realize that they were like focusing on humans and the interactions with the elephants. Anyone else want to add?
I just kind of like want to add to the fact that she said that they needed to analyze their actions. They also needed to make an inference based off of those actions, and be able to pull background knowledge and text evidence to understand the text is all.
And Ms. Collins, do you have anything to add?
I just said the same. We're going to draw an inference, refer to details and examples in the text, and understand how multiple details and quotes can support an idea.
So really they're paying attention to those details, and paying attention to the humans and the interactions to be able to like write an inference, and they were actually comparing, I think, on this one. Yeah, they were comparing on this one in order to compare. Great. So now I want us to see some exemplars. So I do have like student work that I feel like, you know, there are definitely some successes because I saw some student work and I pulled scholars from Ms. Anthony's class that actually like are pretty much like on par with what we want to see as an exemplar. So let's just take a few minutes and look at the exemplar and see how this student show demonstration that they've mastered the standard, that they've paid attention to the actions, to dialogue, and actually paid attention to the humans, focused on the correct character for this exit ticket to make the comparison. They just Taylor, Hanging, Rajon, and Camille. It's pretty cool. So how were these students able to demonstrate mastery of the standard and specifically the pieces that we just talked about?
On all of them, they, excuse me, their claim includes an inference. So the word that they're choosing, for Taylor, it was the opposite of humane. For Rajon, he says mean. And then for Camille, she's saying cruel. So neither of those words are actually mentioned in either story. So like, to me, that's them understanding that, paying attention to the actions that are happening and then coming up with like a character trait to describe that action. And then in each of them, like, it immediately goes to a piece of evidence. so they state for Camille's, they state like the book that it's coming from and what character is saying it. So like Taylor does a really good job by saying like in introductions, which is the chapter, that the humans killed her mom, aunt, sister, and her cousins. So she's giving then like an example, a detail from the text that then supports the word that she used. And then she also was able to go back to the second text and give the example that the first step is like to break that bond between the babies and the mother, which is again another example to support that they are the opposite of being humane in hers. Same with Rajon. I mean, he immediately goes and states the name of the story and then gives a specific example in regards to like supporting the word. So like explaining why he's saying mean and why she was saying inhumane. And then like with Rajon, he even gives 2 examples in the second story, which to me, like I feel like the second story had more examples. It was a little more detailed. But again, like they're showing the connection, like these details, these actions are supporting the word that I chose. Like this is my reason for choosing that. So they're connecting that piece of the multiple details to support the one idea. So they were able to go to both story and pull out like, okay, in this story, this is, you know, mean, and this is the same thing in this story too. So I like that. They were able to kind of follow the flow of the standard while also kind of following like that race format to support their initial claim. My bad.
I mean, literally in order, everything she said. So my favorite.
So I agree with everything Allison said. Like these scholars did actually a really clear job. Like their claims were very clear and did not use words from the text. So it showed a deep understanding of the main idea. So like this part where students should be able to read excerpts across 2 similar texts and determine the main idea and similarities or differences, they clearly like grasp that because that's key to them getting a 3 on this exit ticket. They also were able to draw emphasis and conclusions based on dialogues and actions in the story, and they had like very clear evidence that supported the claim that they made. So these students did a very good job of that. In the second packet, I have some students that show some gaps. So just thinking about these students that show strengths, what do you think the biggest gap is? And we are also going to talk about just like why this is different. What do you see? And I'm sorry, I don't want to go too fast, but I also want to make sure we're done on time. So I know y'all stayed. I appreciate that. What do you see as some of the gaps in these papers?
I noticed that they all made the claim that they are mean. However, they are lacking, their evidence isn't really conceptual to the strong claim. Or they either lack one, or they pulled evidence from one story and then pulled it from the other. Or it basically they didn't really make a comparison. And I think that's what they were lacking in all of these exercises.
I definitely will agree with that. I'm sorry, what were you saying? I definitely will agree with that. On the first one, Lavelle's, I'm showing that like he puts that they both kill elephants. That's not true in both stories. So again, like not making the comparison, only focusing on one story versus the other. And the initial claim isn't clear. Like he starts off like the same from both stories are that they are mean. So it's like his restate isn't there. He just is kind of, you know, like you can tell he understands he has to answer a question, but you don't know what that question is. Like the what is the set, you know what I'm saying? So that's not very clear. And then again, just going through his evidence, he's stuck on one story, and then he says like the other story killed elephants, but that is not true. So that one just is only focused on one with false information. And it's kind of the same thing with Darren's. Like he says in both, but like again, not that detail to show like he's comparing two stories, so no true identity to what he's comparing. He does make the claim that the elephants are mean, or excuse me, that the humans are mean. But then he just starts to say, like in the text, it says they have to stand for 23 hours. Again, not telling us what story he's talking about. It is true evidence, but it's only from one story. And then with Cameron's, in addition to my missing the E up there, he starts with a strong claim, but then he gets too specific in his claim. So he has in both stories the humans are described as mean, where he could have stopped there and then started with evidence, but then he keeps going a part of his claim saying because they use claw sticks when they do something wrong. That's only true in one of the stories, so it shouldn't be a part of his claim. It should have been a part of his evidence. So he was doing good until he added that into that initial claim. And then, like I said, then he goes into his evidence with saying it says humans killed them, but then again, like he's not explaining his evidence because right now he has to prove that both stories are saying that they get hit with a claw stick. Because you see what I'm saying? Because he included that in his claim. And
it's difficult.
right,
Well, he can't do it.
exactly. It's impossible to do. So now it's like you've given a too specific claim that now has your claim being false. So now your evidence, even though you have the correct evidence, it's not supporting the actual claim.
Yeah, I said the evidence in the claim doesn't match.
Right. Yeah.
So I would say what you just said is like spot on. Like they do, like our students, they've gotten a grasp on claims, which like we had a hard time with that.
Yeah.
They have gaps in like the evidence, so it's either not clearly written. It comes from one story, not from both, which is what the question called for. And you know, when you write them, it's just not coherent writing. And that shows, like if you think about the standard here, it shows that they can grasp a main idea, even across two, like especially two short texts. But they are not able to like draw those most accurate inferences and conclusions based on what they put in the claim. So,
Hey, how you doing?
and understand that multiple details can support one idea, but that they need to come from two different texts. So they struggle with a lot of the 3.1 portion of the standard. So, based on what we just saw, what would you say is the biggest conceptual gap that students are showing? And you can take 1 minute to write down what you feel like is the largest conceptual gap. you feel like is the largest conceptual gap?
I said scholars are stuck when it comes to making connections from both texts. They are at times only focus on one text stronger than the other, in return the evidence does not actually claim.
I said that I believe that the largest gap is students making an inference to build a strong claim. So some of them can't infer to build their claim, and therefore their claim is weak, and they don't have evidence to support their claim.
I felt like it was the scholars are able to make the claim, but they're struggling to provide valid, substantial details from the text, both texts, to support the claim. So I felt like they're able to like come up with a character trait of mean or abusive or what have you, but then like explaining that why substantially, so either in order or choosing like the critical piece that really like proves that they're abusive or what have you. I feel like that's missing.
So I agree with both Brandy and Allison about students are able to write claims, but they do not, they're not able to, so the way that I worded it, and I try to make the, the concise statement, students are scoring 2s and 1s on exit tickets because they're able to write a claim, but are not able to cite evidence across text in a coherent way, to include all of the details and writing those details concisely to support that claim. So the key piece is like doing that across 2 different texts to find evidence. So as you get finished writing that up, I want to go ahead and move on to our action steps so we can like keep with time. So when I thought about this, and I thought about what is the action step, because we've done a lot about like just making sure students write clear claims, making sure that they use text evidence, like analyze at the text level, find accurate details, and I actually think they've come a long way. Like they have clear claims. The details are details in the story, and they sort of fit the claim. They just don't always have both across text, and they don't know how to write it concisely. And when I thought about that, I like really thought about like why are they doing that and how can we help? To me, it is like really intentionally thinking through a prompt and not just thinking in like steps. I need claim, evidence, and I need like a claim, answer, evidence, explanation, because I think they're just trying to get done. And they actually need to think about like how they've unpack this pop. Like I write my claim, I need to think about what the claim is and like what type of evidence I need to make sure that I have all of the evidence that I need, whether it's from one story or both stories, and being able to explain that. So what I want students to do based on our action step is going to take like more of a large teacher piece of like helping them to think through these questions. So I put as a what, plan to aggressively monitor scholars' race responses during exit ticket, which is different than what we've been doing. Allison, we talked about it today. She's gonna do like a lovely model for you all. But we talked about it earlier, about aggressively monitoring during race responses to activate thinking versus like not so much the narration and the telling the answer, like giving them more probes, but also just to activate their thinking about the prompts. And the way that we're going to do it is a large piece of it will be you annotating lessons or annotating the exit ticket, which you already annotate the lessons, but annotate the exit ticket using 1 minute for the R. And I said 1 minute because they're like pretty good at a restate. 1 minute for the A, they're pretty good at an answer. But giving like a large chunk, 3 minutes for the C. And then if there's time, the rest of the time is for them to check their work independently, and you will check on vocal scholars to like still make sure that they're on the right track. Because like all of these were pretty much bubbles. I think if they had gotten aggressive monitoring, like with somebody, this is not, like circle this, go back and read, look at your evidence carefully, they would have realized and looked back at your prompt carefully they would have realized that they needed to go back and get that extra piece of evidence. And we were talking today with Allison about how, like, the time in the lesson when they're doing the race responses, like, it's great, like, when they're on track, but sometimes they don't finish those because they don't think fast enough, or like the control of the game wasn't as smooth as we would have liked for it to have been. So they get part of it, but not all of it. But if we do that, and we do have to move on, but like the exit ticket, you can definitely make it happen during the exit ticket. Does anyone have any questions about that before we jump into some modeling?
So basically for the reading portion of it, like giving them time, it's like, okay, you got 1 minute to complete the R, 1 minute to complete the A. That's not us necessarily like, oh, this scholar wrote, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, you want, because you don't want to give the answer away. It's still an exit ticket. You want it to be, especially now, we want to move them towards independence. But I think one way to scaffold that, and like even as the weeks get closer to even math, like, is to at least like say, like, you need to concentrate on this R right now. Now you need to concentrate on that A. And now really concentrate on the C, so that they like at least know how to activate their thinking. And when you see Allison's model, you're going to see like how it activates their thinking about the exit ticket without them giving an answer for you. And without them getting like a lot of narration and like so much like feedback. It's really about like how are you activating your thinking. So Allison has a model for us. She's still kind of writing.
Sorry.
But while she models, I want you to like really pay attention to how she helps students to like actively think about the prompt. How she actually like does more, and I won't call, like how she actually gets them to think about the prompt, how she gets them to continue to go back to the prompt. And just really like what the impact could be if students are actually thinking this way during an exit ticket.
Yeah, I don't have a paper.
Oh, I have the exit ticket. I have it. Sorry, I forgot to get that. So actually, so let's back up. So because I'm asking y'all to do it on the lesson for Monday, and this is an exit ticket from Monday's lesson. And it's similar to the one that you did this week. Sorry, I forgot that little importance.
This is what we did today. Like
No.
similar to
Right. No, well, it's more similar to that one that we looked at because of the fact that they're comparing an action that happened, whereas today they were comparing a reaction of the human.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So this one will more align to that because they have to actually look at an action versus a reaction. So scholars, you will have 10 minutes to complete your exit ticket. We'll take the first minute to mark up your question. Remember to focus on compare and contrast your characters and the event from your question. Get ready, go. So at this time, I'm walking around. I have scholars strategically on both sides grouped together that I'm going to be looking at their papers. Check means that you're doing well, and X means that you need to fix your markup, something like that. So it'll be a brief comment, like you forgot your characters. What's the action you're going to pay attention to? So just something quick. Now, scholars, we're going to work on your claim. You remember, your claim is can I say that? Remember, your claim is going to be your R and your A. Your restate is going to show the understanding of your answer. The question, excuse me. Let me start over. Now, scholars, we will work on your claim. Your claim will show your understanding of the question that you are answering and include your answer. Be sure to include the events, the characters, and the comparison of the effect of the event, something like that. You have 2 minutes. I'm coming around looking at your R and your A. Remember, a check means that your claim is strong. Continue on. A X means that you're missing a part of your claim. I'll tell you what part you're missing. Go. So at this point, again, I'm only focusing on the scholars that I've already marked on my paper that I'm looking at. Those, again, will be the bubble scholars strategically placed. So my model, I'm actually walking down the middle of both of my rows so that I can see the ones that are to my left and the ones that are to my right in one swift movement because I only have 2 minutes. Now, scholars, it's time for the important part. We're focusing on your cited evidence. Remember, you need to go back to your question to see where the evidence must come from and how much evidence is needed. That's all in your question. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to write before I come around and start checking. At this point, or go. At this point, I'm actually monitoring everyone to make sure that pencils are to paper at the right location. However, I'm only giving the feedback to those that, like in this situation, that we know are our bubble kids that need that extra push. So I'm doing like a monitor everyone's paper to make sure that everyone is to this point, to the C, to keep everyone on task, to make sure that everyone finishes. But I know the kids that are struggling with the C based on like this week's data. So I'm really just gonna focus on them as I'm walking up and down. But everyone at this point should be here. So we're like 5 minutes in. 5 minutes in, everyone should be working on their C. Now, scholars, you're ready to complete your response by explaining how your evidence supports your claim. Use your final 3 minutes to finish your E. If you have extra time, remember, go back and read your entire race response. Make sure that it's worthy of a 3. Remember, you must include the compare and contrast of the characters, the events, and the effect. Your question is still there on your paper. Go. And then again, at this point, I'm just running through, checking on them, and again, just narrating and checking specifically again on those scholars. And I even drew a picture of like the scholars and where they sit so that I'll know like where to go and which ones to check on. But again, it's giving every scholar attention, but really focusing in on the ones like that are really going to struggle with the C. The others I can just kind of go give a quick check to, and I know, you know, they're on track. But the ones that I'm really going to need feedback on, I want to make sure that I have specifically what I'm looking for at what point in the, like the time that I'm looking for. If that makes sense.
So thinking about that aggressive monitoring for an exit ticket, what do you feel like was, as you watched out, how did that activate students' thinking? And how is it different from like what you do during the lesson?
Personally, you didn't like, oh, scholars, this is the answer, so
Right,
that's
right.
good. But it was more so like, okay, scholars, you have a minute, 2 minutes to do such and such. Remember, it's like you keep reminding them, this is what you need, this is what you need. Remember, you need to tell me about the event. You need to compare, like you kept reiterating the question. So it's not like, oh, what's the question? Is it, or
Right,
is it? And it's kind of like jump starting. Okay, now in the walk around, we should be on the seat. And it's like something that you're doing together. So I think that's like, it's a more structured pace, like, so. It was very clear.
So I think it was a structured pace. Andrea, I don't know if you had anything to add. You were still writing. You didn't have anything?
No, something
Okay.
like she said.
So it was like a very structured pace. I feel like it activated students' thinking because I just listened to like the preciseness of the words. Like scholars, we're looking at the prompt, pay attention to the words, compare and contrast. Pay attention to, I think I forgot, I didn't type down, I was typing down.
The characters and the event from the question.
And your claim shows understanding. And then from there, you're gonna write your claim and your answer show like your understanding. So I think just like really unpacking that prompt. And then as she went through it, like slowing students down, like this is your most important part. This is your C. And then making them go back to the question to look at it. So not just saying cite your evidence. If you have a question where they have to take evidence from 2 stories, if you prompt a student to go back, what could they possibly realize that they may have missed?
Evidence from those, like one of the stories.
Yeah, both stories.
Oh, it's 2 stories.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like I think like a child like Cameron probably would even have fixed the claim. Because he's smart enough to know like, oh, like I put this in my claim and it like doesn't really fit both stories.
Right.
So he would have fixed that and then like try to find something that fit both stories because he had enough understanding of the text. So it really does activate thinking and just eliminate some confusion of like, what is like all of the muddled thinking, like what is this question about? What am I trying to answer? So we want to make sure that we're going through each component and spending the largest chunk of time on the largest gap.
Yeah, because our scholars say, what am I asking you?
Yeah. And especially when they get to the evidence piece, like if they're spending that time. And then as you're going to monitor, even though you're not really giving them like all that focused feedback, even if you like check and say you're on the right track, or circle and say like you don't have enough in your claim, that also prompts them to go back to the question. And so we think forward, like flash forward to the state test, if we like practice exit tickets that are open-ended responses like this every single day, what could be the impact on the students?
It would be when it become muscle memory. So like, okay, all right, I need my RA first. And now let me check back and see how many pieces. Like if we continue it, like they'll be able to go back to the question multiple times. They'll be able to go back to the text multiple times, and they can actually implement pretty much what they're missing, or if they're confused, like they'll be able to read both sides.
But they'll be in the habit of reading purposefully multiple times and like actually like clearly understanding, because they hear your voices all the time in their heads. So they will hear you talking to them like, oh, Ms. Anthony will say this if I were answering that. So I just wanted to stamp just like the things that you said. We can activate students' thinking by prompting them to actually go back to the prompt several times, and helping them to notice important words in the prompt and really critically think about what is being asked of them, and giving them the most time on the largest conceptual gap, which is right now citing evidence, especially when it's across both texts. And just furthermore, like though all constructive responses won't be erased, because like we've had like a hard lesson about race responses just based on the narratives that students have to write, we do want to build habits in students that will enable them to write a coherent and concise piece of writing when prompted on the state test. Like we want them to actually really think about anything they're being asked to write. Who's your writing?
I'll be out in a second.
That perfect timing.
Perfect.
You've probably been outperforming like.
No.
Wait a minute. Let me call you.
Yeah, so as a next step, I would like for us to, and I can make copies of Allison's, she already has hers now on Monday, but make copies of her script, and I'll be coming in, well I won't be coming in, so I will be asking you to record just the exit ticket portion on Monday, and I want to look at the work samples too, just to see like what students scored and to see what the impact is, to see if it makes a difference in their scores on the lesson Monday. So just make sure Allison's is already marked up. Brandy, if you can mark up your exit ticket for Monday and record yours. And what we can do, if you want to I have time before I leave tomorrow, since I know your ride's here, but once you mark up and annotate them, you can do a run through of your exit ticket.
Okay.
Just to make sure you're all set, but I'm pretty sure that.
I definitely want a copy of that. And just like flow with go with the flow. But that was very well laid out.
Yeah, that was very good.
Now I gotta strategically move the body. Start with go sit right there.
Well, thank you all again just for staying a few extra minutes today. And thanks for still being here when I got off the phone. So I'll find you.
Oh, yeah. See you later. Thank you.
Bye.